In this video, we'll take a look at the Whizzer kick technique, known as an Uchimata in judo, of 9-time Olympic and world champ Buvaisar Saitiev. Saitiev, considered by many to be the greatest freestyle wrestler of all time, used the Whizzer kick to great effect during the course of his career. Let's break the move down into several different components. First, we have the upper body controls. Saitiev performs the move with a right arm overhook and some form of far arm control, typically wrist or tricep control or an underhook. Next, we have the entry and the near leg reap. Saitiev usually performs a jumping skip step that allows him to close the space between his hips and the opponent's hips, and to also change his angle to parallel or near parallel. Once he's closed the space, Saitiev hooks the opponent's near thigh with his right leg. Lastly, we have the finishing mechanics. To finish the throw, Saitiev will pivot his head and torso down and away while hanging his weight on the overhook to break the opponent's posture to a horizontal or downward angle. As the opponent's posture is broken, Saitiev will continue to elevate the opponent's near hip with the leg hook, while pulling inward with, or at least maintaining, the far arm control. Once sufficient rotation is generated, the opponent will be forced to his far hip. Saitiev will oftentimes finish the throw in a hopping style, known as ken-ken in judo, which allows him to finish the throw in a slower, more controlled fashion than a conventional Uchimata. One benefit of the less explosive hopping version is that it will generally lessen the impact of the landing and lead to fewer roll-throughs where the opponent being thrown ends up on top. One detail to note is that Saitiev will hop his left post leg in a counterclockwise direction to help rotate the opponent over his far hip. So to review, we have the upper body controls, an overhook and a form of far arm control, a skip step entry and leg hook, then finishing mechanics that involve breaking the opponent's posture while elevating the near hip, pulling on or keeping the far arm, and if necessary, hopping on the post leg in a circular direction away from the opponent. If all goes well, the opponent will lose his balance and be rotated over his far hip. Let's see each of these components in a bit more detail. To perform the throw, Saitiev gets his upper body controls. This involves a right arm overhook, and far arm control, which can be a wrist or hand control, tricep control, or an underhook. For the entry, Saitiev usually performs a skip step where his left foot replaces his right foot and his right leg then hooks the opponent's near thigh. Note the angle change on the entry, which results in Saitiev facing the same direction as the opponent. Now on to the finishing mechanics. The first thing to notice is the opponent's posture. For each successful throw, Saitiev bites down on his overhook and elevates the opponent's near hip, which actions combine to put the opponent's spine in a horizontal, or even better, downward-facing angle. Notice how Saitiev brings his own posture to a horizontal or downward-facing angle by pivoting his head down and away towards his posting leg. With the opponent's posture broken, he becomes more susceptible to the lower body and upper body rotation. The lower body rotation is generated through the near hip elevation. The upper body rotation is generated through the far arm control, which in this particular case also prevents the opponent from posting their hand to the mat for balance. Once sufficient rotation is generated, the opponent will no longer be able to maintain his balance and will be forced over his far hip. Let's talk briefly about two other throw options that Saitiev used. The first is an inside trip throw, called an ochigari in judo. This throw works well in combination with the Whizzer kick because the entry and leg hook are similar. This is an especially good option when the opponent has an upright vertical posture, which makes the Whizzer kick, or Uchimata, difficult to execute against. The way Saitiev performs the throw in this clip is similar to how it is done in judo, with the leg hook followed by a hopping forward drive. This is a bit different than the version you typically see in wrestling, in which the offensive wrestler hooks closer to the ankle and sinks his weight to the mat fairly quickly. Taking another look at the Saitiev throw, we can see the same right side overhook and skip step entry we saw earlier, but this time he keeps a more head-on angle and hooks the leg at the calf rather than the thigh. To finish the takedown, he drives forward off his post foot while maintaining his upper body controls and leg hook. The final throw variation we'll look at is a far leg hook, called an osoto gari in judo. Instead of hooking the near thigh, like we saw in both the whizzer kick and inside trip throws, Saitiev will hook the far leg and drive the opponent towards his far hip. The far leg hook option may make sense if the opponent has an upright posture with a narrow stance, as seen in this instance. That concludes this video. For supporters of the channel through YouTube memberships and Patreon, be on the lookout for some frame-by-frame voiceover analysis videos covering some of these throws by Saitiev. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.